Monday, everyone, or Tuesday, depending on when we broadcast this. But we're really honored to have a great animal advocate in the studio with us, Randy Wallace from Fox 26. Tama and I, co-presidents of Houston Pets, that we've done a lot of interviews with you and gotten to know you over the years. So we thought this would be an interesting time to talk about media, how you got involved in animals, and the importance to Houston, the importance of this issue to Houston. So
I'm so glad to be here. I've probably been working with you all for like maybe at least 3 years now, right?
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, it's been really great. I mean, my hat's off to what you all do and all the other rescue groups. I mean, it's amazing to me what you all are able to do.
Well, thank you, Randy. We feel blessed to be surrounded by a lot of great people doing this work. But back to you, how did you get involved kind of in animal welfare in Houston?
I've been a general assignment reporter for probably the last, 10 years. Before that, I was an investigative reporter. And a woman by the name of Terry Drennan, she was with Bassett Buddies, a Bassett rescue group.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know this at the time. And it had just kind of started where you had different shelters like Bark, Montgomery County. They would allow rescue groups to come in and pull dogs that they needed medical attention to survive, or, under certain circumstances, they'd waive the 3-day hold and they would say, okay, you take this animal. And I mean, it was a great thing to do. At the time, a woman by the name of Dawn Blackmore was the director of the Harris County Animal Shelter. She would have nothing to do with it. I mean, the law says we have to hold them for 3 days before anybody can take them. So that was the original story. And then there was a woman that was, Kathy Sherman was her name. She was an animal control officer for Harris County. She started sending me videos showing me where, as we were talking about before, there's a law. There's a law in the books that says you cannot euthanize animals in front of each other. You can't have like a mass thing, or no animal should see what's about to happen to them. I mean, that's why we have that law. Well, she was breaking the law repeatedly, and it took about a year and a half before they finally got rid of her, because it became kind of a political thing where she'd been there forever. She's a county, when you're a municipal employee, a county employee, a city employee, there are protections in place. And there should be, I mean, if you give, 10, 20, 30 years to the county or the city, your employment should be protected. Mm-hmm. But it became kind of a political issue where it took a while for them to finally push her out. But I think that was the story where that's sort of how I became the dog guy.
Yeah. So you did a story on that, actually.
Yes.
Okay, and I guess there was a lot of reaction to it.
Oh yeah, it was probably one of the biggest stories in the latter part of my investigative career. I got a local Emmy for it, and wow. I mean, it made a difference. But it was frustrating to a lot of people because, well, why is she still there? Why is she still there? Why is she still there? Mm-hmm. And, I mean, it was one of those things that it did take a while. And I do have to say that the station was behind me 100%. It got to the point where you can imagine she didn't like me too well. And she went to the bosses and she said that, I during the interview, I was hostile, that I had blocked the door, that I wouldn't let her out.
Oh, wow.
Well, the thing that she didn't realize is once you do this investigative stuff, there are certain interviews or certain situations where you want everything on. It's like you roll through the whole thing.
Yep.
Because it's to protect me, and it's also protecting the person. I mean, so she made this accusation, and then the news director at the time, sat down with her, had a meeting, and then he asked me about it, and I said, it's all on tape. You can see every single minute. The one thing that I'll never forget about the day we shot the story, we wanted B-roll video of her where the animals actually were. So she's like walking, in the actual kennel, the dogs are all in cages, and she doesn't all of us, if you love dogs and you're in that situation,
Yes.
you're going to, oh, look at you. Right?
Right.
It's like a straight shot. No, she did not acknowledge a dog. She didn't touch a dog. I mean, it was,
Yeah.
you know, she just.
And we've actually walked those rows that you talk about with the current, I guess, director of the county shelter. And he does stop, and he does, even though I was thinking, do you just become hardened? It was a question in my mind. You just become hardened and you just work. But, you know, as long as he's been there, we see him interact. We see him say, oh, can someone go get a mop and clean this up? Oh, let's get this puppy out of here and bring it to
And
my office.
Dr. White over there
That's what
is
I'm saying.
incredible.
Yeah.
Yes.
He's the one who does
Yes.
that now.
We've
For as
never-
long as he's been there.
Yeah.
Every time we've been in his office, he always has
A box of
one
puppies.
or two or three or 20 puppies,
Yes,
in a
yeah.
little play area caring for them.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we know that Dr. White cares a lot about animals, and kudos to him and the great new facility that they have too.
It's beautiful.
And to
It's
you too
beautiful.
for bringing that. Kudos to you for bringing that story and shining the light on what was happening at the shelters, because we know historically Houston shelters haven't been treating the animals
Right. Well, and they're not. It's just really kind of recently, if you will, where it became a situation where we get these animals out of here. Before it was a pound.
Yeah.
You know, the idea of what do we do with them was always, well, we euthanize them if they don't belong to anybody. I mean, it's kind of a relatively new phenomenon that these shelters, and the reason they're doing it is because they get so much help from rescue groups.
I was
They
gonna say,
could not do it without rescue groups. There's no way.
I wonder what the percentage is of the rescue groups being responsible for the good outcomes of the shelter.
Oh, if it wasn't
it's
for
gotta
rescue,
be 70 or
yes.
80%.
Yes,
I would say
yes.
at least, because we know it's the rescue group. So, it's great that Bark has turned their facility around, and Harris County has done so much, but they also need to credit those rescue groups for the success.
Yes.
A lot of the successes
they
they've
would
had.
not.
They
I
wouldn't,
mean,
yeah.
Bark is touting a 94, 95% live release rate. It would not be that without rescue groups. There's no way. And you got to remember too, these are tax funded entities and it's tax dollars. And it would be questionable to spend, as much as I love animals, to spend $10,000 on one animal. You can't do that as a tax-funded entity.
Right.
But if you want to do it as a private group and get donations, you have every right to do that, and it's a great thing to do.
It is a great thing to do, and we're lucky that there are so many rescue groups willing to do that. And their philosophies do range. Some groups will say, no, we want to end the suffering of this animal. And there are other groups that will spend $10,000, $15,000, $20,000, and hats off to all of them for the work that they do.
Right. When you look at that, I can see both. I can see it both ways because I've had older dogs, I've lost older dogs, and it's like, just as a pet owner, sometimes we can be faced with that decision, right? What if you don't have that much money and all of a sudden you're looking at a $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 vet bill, and there's no guarantee, and the vet is telling you, the vet's up front about it. Hey, we could maybe extend your pet's life, or it might not really do that much. So it's hard decisions to make on a personal level, and when you have a group of people making that decision. But unlike you, I can, however you view that is your own opinion, and your heart's in the right place either way.
Yeah, we
So
honor
great.
him. So you've done a lot of stories since that original story in 2007, 2008?
Yeah, it was like 2008, 2009.
Wow.
And then that's sort of what made people, there was a period of time where I did a lot of stories on Child Protective Services, and they're hard stories to do, and they don't make the greatest TV stories in the world, but they're very good. I mean, it's like, that agency needs to be exposed from time to time. And so for a while, I was sort of to this day, I'll get, tips and stuff from people that are having issues with Child Protective Services. Now I'm doing the Breaking Bond thing with Andy Kahn. That's sort of the big issue now.
Yeah.
So the thing I've learned by doing this, it's sort of what you put out there is what you get back. And I think when people watched the Harris County Shelter expose from 2009, it's like, ooh, this dude likes animals. You know what I mean? So it's, if you saw a story on a particular issue that you were having and it was some particular reporter, that's the reporter
Yeah,
you're
sure.
likely going to call and say, hey, I have this issue or I have this problem
Mhm.
too.
But you really do love animals.
Oh
We
my God,
know
I
you
do.
do.
I
Yeah.
do. More so than people sometimes.
Well, it's so much easier, I think.
They are. It's,
Uncomplicated.
yeah.
So uncomplicated.
You know how it is, especially when people kind of know who you are, and you want everybody to like you. You want to be able to help everybody that reaches out to you. That's not possible.
Right.
It just isn't. And it's like, I gave up reading the comments a long time ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, back when I was doing investigative stuff, I would, here I thought, oh, look at what I uncovered here. And I'd get some, post, your shirt doesn't match your tie. And you think, what?
Yeah. Yeah, you have to get a little bit of a thick skin
Yeah.
to be in your business. We know.
Do you see the animals, though, the subject of animals being well received in the community?
Yes.
Yeah.
And my station too. I mean, you see the end result of stuff, and there's obviously. I mean, we live in a society now where they're not pets, they're children, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, it's your child and you're going to spend money on your pet and you want to know, the best treatment for your pet, the best food for your pet. I mean, there's a huge audience out there that,
Right.
and it's starting to affect elections. I mean,
Yeah.
you all got involved with, the mayor race last time. Fort Bend County, there's a woman there that she has these political forums, and these people, that's all they address is where they stand on animal issues.
Yeah. We believe that was important to make this a part of the platforms of elected officials. And I'm glad you brought up the forum or candidates, because it's bipartisan, but at this point it is somewhat political because the funding has to come from the governments. If we're going to solve this problem, the governments have to work together with the nonprofits, with the corporations, with the foundations. Everybody's going to have to come together. So we're excited that candidates are looking at this and putting it on their platforms, especially in Texas, in Houston, where it has reached a crisis level, and
you've
the
pointed
citizens
out.
care.
Yeah, you've pointed out many times. It's a quality of life issue. It really is. It's not. It's not just stray dogs running around. I mean, there are neighborhoods where it's not safe for people to just be able to walk down their sidewalk or,
Get to the bus.
Yeah.
Metro said their
right,
number
yeah.
one complaint is people cannot get to the bus stop. So here we provide the service of having mass transit in Houston, but the people can't get to it because of the packs of dogs. We spent millions, hundreds of millions on hike and bike trails, but people are afraid to ride on them now because of the packs of dogs. So you've got all this advancement and this growth in this wonderful city of Houston, but yet we look like a third world country when it comes to how we deal with our starved populations.
Well, last year you and I did a story about Houston, about postal workers in Houston being bitten by dogs more than anywhere else in the country. And just the other day, they came out with the most recent study, and where we lead the pack. I mean, that's.
Again.
That's wrong on so many levels.
Well, you're really affecting, going back to quality of life and public safety. So here, I think I wrote an email last night talking about if you're a fireman or a police officer, you expect to go into dangerous situations. We've got postal workers now who have their lives threatened almost daily by these dogs that are running around, and they have to do their job, but yet they get no protection from these animals because the city is not out there picking up the strays. They're not looking for the packs of dogs. They'll take an animal occasionally if you find the right slot, to bring the animal in.
Yeah.
But they're not out. We're not out picking up those strays anymore, which is
No.
unfortunate.
Right.
And people are paying the paying for that.
So what percentage of stories do you do that relate to animals, do you think?
I would say I average maybe one report a week.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it all depends on the news of the day.
Yes.
You know, I mean, my bosses are really, sometimes I probably, if I could have my way, I would do nothing but dog stories and the Breaking Bond series. That's all I would do. But that's not going to happen. I mean, you know, that's in my little world. That's not in their world. But they, you know, they don't complain like,
Right.
you know, pitch these dog stories over and over again. And a lot of them turn out really well. And the best thing, there's been a couple of times, and it just, I think I was more excited than the people, where I did a story and they found the dog. I did a story
Yeah.
like just 2 or 3 weeks ago. This guy down at Midtown, and his housekeeper had taken both of his dogs to that dog park, Bagby Dog Park.
Uh-huh.
And it was real calculated. This guy is like watching the housekeeper that's got the dogs.
Right.
And, you know, he's in the fenced in area and he takes them off the leash to let them run around, play a little bit. This guy grabs the dog, jumps the fence, and jumps into a vehicle.
Oh my gosh.
And
I can't imagine.
The guy was just devastated. I mean, it was like he was so worried about the dog. And we did the story,
Mm-hmm.
and then 5 minutes after it aired, this woman called the newsroom and she said, "Oh, I had that dog. I bought that dog from a homeless guy a couple of days ago
Oh,
for."
wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So because of your story, this
Yeah.
guy got his dog back.
Yes.
Wow. Unbelievable, Randy.
And it's not really anything that I do. It's like I'm just sort of the messenger, you know. I
Yeah.
put it out there, and
Right.
there was a woman that this was probably 2 or 3 years ago. To this day, this woman sends me cookies and stuff. But she went to Home Depot, and she had her dog. It was a border collie in her truck,
Mhm.
and she runs into Home Depot to grab some.
Right.
Somebody steals the truck with the dog in it.
Oh God.
And she didn't care anything about that truck. You know, she said, I don't want the truck. If you got the truck, keep the truck. Please, 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 I want my dog back. And it was right before Christmas. It was a few days before Christmas. And I was just, please, please, somebody.
Yeah.
And I did the story, and about 3 or 4 days passed, and I had left town to go to Ohio to visit my family for Christmas. And somehow she got, I forget how it happened, but she got the dog back.
Unbelievable. That's great.
And I've done some where it doesn't happen. You know, they don't get their pet back, but when they do, it's super exciting.
Well, when you're looking at Houston right now, and the crime is up, and everyone is pretty much aware of it, but you also have to protect those animals too.
Yeah.
Don't leave them in your car. Don't leave them in your yard unattended, because people are stealing.
Yes.
My son came home last night and he said, "I'm going back out." I said, "Where are you going?" He goes, "I'm going to buy some chickens." I go, whoa, we're not buying chickens. But apparently there was a man alongside the road selling chickens.
Yeah.
I mean, within blocks of our house. So in the inner city, he said, "I think he's homeless. He's probably trying to get some money, but I'm worried about the chickens." And I said, "Well, I'm worried about them in our garage because we have a pit bull, and you know,
Right.
and who would probably be best friends with him, but it's the little terrier who would might not agree with having chickens in the
Right.
garage." But you know, people are doing, what I'm saying is people are doing a lot because they're desperate right
Yeah.
now. There's a lot of desperation, and animals bring value. You can go on Craigslist and buy animals, unfortunately. So be careful. If you have a dog, you know, protect it like you do your children.
Yes, yeah. I think the days of just putting the dog in the backyard and checking on them 5 or 10 minutes later, those days are
No,
gone.
I think so too.
I mean, they really are.
Yeah.
I have a pit, so no one's going to take her.
You have a pet?
Yes,
Oh,
yes.
what is her name?
Her name is Sugar,
Sugar.
and she's huge.
Where did you get her, Randy?
Is it a good story?
I always loved miniature dachshunds. I just loved those dogs. And I had 2, and one of them died maybe around 2010. Then the other one passed away, and I was done.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not. And these friends of mine, they had a pit that had puppies. And they were like, "Hey, no." And I had never even, I was one of those people, I thought, who has a pit? They eat the baby, right?
Right.
And so they would they'd find reasons for me to keep it. We're going away. Could you just watch it for the weekend? Could you just watch it for the weekend? And I was okay, but I would not, I wasn't going to get attached to the dog. And, time would go by where it would be like a month or two and it's bigger and bigger. And so they bring it one weekend to stay with me and I'm like, what? Okay. So I'm sitting, I have like a couch here and a couch here and I'm sitting on this couch and she's sitting on the other couch. And I was reading her something, and she just slowly gets closer and closer and closer. And I'm thinking, is she going to eat me? And the next thing I know, she's like right next to me. And then I kind of did one of these, and she gives me like the softest little kiss, and I'm like, that's it, you're mine. And that was it.
They're the sweetest
Yes,
things, aren't they?
Yes.
Yeah, my little ones does that now. He just gets a little closer, and then it's like, and he's in my lap, and I'm like, you are not a lap dog, but he thinks he is. He's the sweetest.
I mean,
sweetest
mine's
dog.
protective. I mean, if you come to my house and she knows I want you in my house, she'll do all she can to get in your lap.
Yeah.
But if I'm like, who are you? Or she senses that I'm not real sure that I want you there, she's not going to let you in.
Yeah.
Well,
so would a Chihuahua, or a silky,
They're the ones to
or silky
fear.
terrier, Cocker Spaniel, or
Yes,
some of the
Yeah.
dogs that have the highest rate of bites.
Right. I had a Cocker Spaniel a long time ago, and I love Cocker Spaniels, but they can be a little, they can.
They're bitey.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful dog,
Yeah.
but yeah.
When I was growing up, one of the meanest dogs I ever came across, my cousin had like a full-size, like a big poodle, That was Jacques was the dog's name. And whenever
He didn't like his name.
whenever you'd go to the door, it's like he didn't want you to leave. And whenever you'd go like to the front door to walk out, he bites on the butt.
Oh, wow.
He was a mean dog. That's the only dog that I ever met in my entire life that I just really didn't want to have any kind of relationship
Yeah.
with,
They're great, aren't they? And
Yeah.
you bring up a good point about how these dogs become. Earlier, you did like family, like children. 90% of people with dogs consider them a family member. They are not a pet.
Right.
They're not. They're not part of the family. They are a family member. So I can see why your stories get a lot of attention and people are interested and they want you to do more animal stories because if you care about your dogs, if you have one, you've got to care about the hundreds of thousands that are on our
Right.
streets
And
because
they
they're
have
not any different.
personalities. They have souls. They have
They're not any
personalities.
different, are they,
They're
Randy?
right.
You've
They're
been
the
out on the
same.
streets with us. You know that those dogs on the streets, they're street dogs. Oh, they're strays. They are exactly like the dogs
That's
that are
right.
in the homes. They still have feelings. They still want to be loved. I got into a conversation this weekend with somebody about there's a dog, it's a video, and the dog goes to the car wash and gets the rollers like on his back and he's a stray dog. And I said, dogs need to be touched.
Yes.
He probably, that's just like you need food, water, shelter, and human touch. Humans do. I think dogs do too. And I think that was his way of getting
Oh,
touched.
yeah.
He needed that because my pit bull does the same thing. He goes through the closet at sloth speed. And just slowly lets the clothing go
cutest
over
thing
his
ever.
body. It's the funniest thing, but he'll just sloth speed and the clothing is just slowly dragging over his body. But I think maybe for the 5 or 6 years he was on the streets and he didn't have any love,
Yeah.
it's that touch that he needs. It's the only thing
And
I
those
can think
clothes
of.
smell like you too.
Yeah, that's
So
true.
it's like
Yeah.
it's a double
Yeah.
good thing for him. He's
Yeah.
smelling you and he's
Uh-huh.
feeling this and it's
That's the first safety he's ever had in his life.
Yeah.
Which was probably our
And
household.
think about it. No matter how many dogs you've had in your life, they're all different,
Yes.
right? I mean,
Yeah.
there's not like two alike.
No, they not even in the same breed.
Right, yeah.
Like we were Westie lovers, and
Yeah.
I'd go and visit Westies after my Westie died or see a friends and pick it up and just want that same feeling. That it's such a soul. Each dog has that singular soul, characteristics, personality unique only to them, I
Yes.
think. Yeah.
And when you rescue them, it's so interesting to see that personality
Yes.
evolve and come out, and they can get to be their true selves. And sometimes it takes years.
Yeah.
Our most recent little Benjamin, we couldn't even touch him at first. He had to let me touch him because he couldn't walk. I had to carry him. But now he's learning how to be a dog. He picks up his toys and he runs through the house and, things I never thought I'd see him do. And literally it brings tears to our eyes to see him become relaxed and joyful and kind of the puppy that he gets to experience his
Yeah.
puppyhood where he probably didn't as a street dog.
Yeah.
So it's a beautiful thing to watch.
And I just think there's something about them that it's like they love you even more because they know,
Yeah. Yes.
I mean, before I ever really knew about a rescue group or anything like that, it was like in the mid 90s, and this Cocker Spaniel that was a mess was just hanging around the neighborhood, and it would just, always see me and come, and I started feeding it. And then a friend of mine was like, we'll clean it up. We're going to clean the dog up and we'll give it away. I said, okay. I mean, it was nasty. I mean, you know how Cocker Spaniels that
Yeah.
have never been groomed and,
God.
it was awful. Well, we cleaned the dog up, and I had her about 3-4 months. And this couple said, we'll take her. And I'd had her for 3 months. And so they come to get her, and she's just sitting there staring at me, and they're like, we're going to go now. We're going to go now. I'm like, no, I'm keeping the dog.
Oh, wow. Foster fail.
Yes. And at that time, I took her to the vet. They guessed that she was 7-8 years old. She lived to be 14, 15
Wow.
years old. She ended up, bless her heart, she ended up being blind and deaf. But it's like somehow there was like some bees in the backyard, and she got in this beehive, and she's all swollen up. So I had to go to the vet, and I'm thinking the vet's going to say, we got to put this poor dog down. So the vet's looking at her, and he said, I forget what it was, why he said this, but he's like, I don't think she can see. And I'm like, okay. And then a couple minutes later, he's like, she's deaf. And I'm like, what's your point? He's like, no, it's fine. Yeah, he's like, as long as she's happy.
Yeah.
I mean, you couldn't rearrange the furniture or anything, but she could go through that. She'd always go to the same spot in the backyard. I mean, she was
Amazing animals, amazing creatures. They are. They have senses we'll never appreciate. You never understand. We can appreciate, but can't.
And you never
Get our
forget
arms
any
around
of
it.
them. I mean, I haven't had,
Oh.
in my life, I've probably had 8, I guess, maybe 8 dogs.
Mhm.
But I will always remember them. And it's awful when you lose one. I mean, it's heart-wrenching.
It's the worst.
And I think everybody's first reaction is, I'm not doing that again.
Yeah.
It's like any situation where your heart hurts, right?
Mhm.
You get your heart hurt and you think, I'm not doing that
Right.
again.
Well, yeah.
But then that the animal wants you to.
Right. Yeah.
And you're not replacing anybody or anything or any animal. You're just helping another one out.
It's one reason we love our fosters.
Yeah.
It's such a selfless act. We've all done it, Jill and Tena. But you bring that foster in your home. It doesn't matter. I mean, I have fallen in love on transport day and then shed tears because that dog is going. I've known the dog less than an hour, So to have your dog in your home for weeks and months and you rehabilitate it, you make that connection, and then you put it on a bus and it's going to have a great ride and it's
Yeah.
going to go to a forever home, and there's nothing bad about it. It's just you get attached so quickly. So all those foster groups out there, all those foster people, such a selfless act that they do every day by having these dogs in their home and then, letting them go on to their forever
And
home.
there's a big need for
There
fosters
is,
right now, a
Randy. I'm
huge
so
need.
glad you said that.
Yes. Yep.
So-
That might be another story, Randy. The
Yeah.
need
Yeah.
for fosters.
They do.
Yes.
Because and it's changed too. A lot of times fostering used to be that you get a dog and you get stuck with it forever. Because you
Right,
want,
yeah, right, yeah,
and,
yeah.
and that wouldn't be a bad thing. But if you know now that if you can foster and that dog is going on transport, there's a finite amount of time. I think people are more interested to foster, knowing that I'll only have this dog for 2 or 3 weeks and then
Yeah.
it can go. So
And it's a great way too. If you don't, breeds are different. I mean, they are, and it's a perfect opportunity to kind of try one out,
Yeah.
right? I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
you try
Test ride,
if you've
yeah.
never had a pity, or you've never had a dachshund or whatever. It's like you get to try it out and see what
Such
they're
a great
like.
point. I never thought about
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
And it's free. I mean, you're out. The group gives you the food. You don't pay any med. I mean, it's completely free.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for the work that you do, for being the dog reporter, the animal reporter. We're so grateful. You have changed kind of the landscape for a lot of animal welfare in Houston by the stories that you've done. They're important, whether it's from, cruelty cases or lost dogs or just kind of the state
Legislation.
of legislation, the state of the way things are in this city. You've brought attention to the crisis that we have. And so we're grateful to you, Randy.
Well, thank you. You all have been wonderful to me for the last, what's it been now, 3 years?
3-4
I guess I met you on 2018.
Yeah, probably.
Now it's just it's like it was a pre-pandemic, right?
Yeah. Well, or was it before the flood or after that? Which crisis was it?
Which
thought you meant the,
catastrophe
Noah's
had
flood.
happened when we met?
We're going to have a designation, BC,
Right.
AC, after the pandemic, and nothing will ever be the same. But it was definitely before. I think it was back when we were doing the forum, the mayoral forum.
Right. I want to say it was 18. Does that sound right to you?
That's when I started with Houston Pet Sit. So
Yeah.
that sounds
Yeah.
right.
Right.
Jill,
Yeah,
Jill
you made
probably
the
connected us
introduction.
with Randy.
Yes.
Yeah. So thank
It's all
you.
Jill's fault.
Where can people find your stories and tune into your reports and all that?
Well, I've got a Facebook page that I post a lot of stuff, Randy Wallace, Fox 26. If you think that you have a story about something, please reach out to me. Just understand that I'm really busy. They keep my old butt hopping, and I can't. And I will tell you if it's just not a story. For example, if you see what you think is animal cruelty, and you've called law enforcement, and they've basically told you the same thing, I cannot put that on television. I mean, if there's not a law enforcement official or a criminal charge involved, I can't accuse somebody of animal cruelty or any other crime without some sort of charge or official investigation.
Right. And we hope that we have more laws in place very soon so that these law enforcement officers can start protecting animals when they're on the street. And then you can start reporting some of this stuff, because what you see is negligence. It is suffering, but there aren't the laws to back up what needs to be said or what needs to be done.
Right. I mean, I'm sure you all are the same. You don't ever tether your animal. You don't put your dogs on a chain. I never put my dog on a chain. I mean, they go out in the backyard, they come back in the house. I mean, they would put me on a chain before they'd let me put a chain on them.
It's not a climate where a dog should be an outdoor dog. Yeah.
Right.
Especially without some sort of protection. So,
Yeah.
Agreed. Well, thanks for being here today,
Thank
Randy.
you.
It's
Thank you,
always great to
Randy.
see you.
You too.
Such a good friend to Houston Pet
Yeah.
Sit and the animals.
Yep.
Thank you.